everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Azura, and today we continue on with our casual overview of the agents in Valorant. We're dipping our toes into the Initiator role with one of the most powerful agents in terms of gameplay and lore. A war machine, built to deal with the toughest of customers, sent back to prevent a war that inflicted unspeakable horrors upon his timeline. The Radiant Counter, the Cutting Edge, the Ace up the Sleeve, KO, the anti-yield war machine. Let's get into this, shall we? KO is a machine of war, built for a single purpose, neutralizing radiance. His power to suppress enemy abilities dismantles his opponent's capacity to fight back, securing him and his allies the ultimate edge. KO is a character that completely shuts down game plans for enemies when he gets the chance. With good ability timings and utility usage, KO can, and has, taken over games entirely by himself before. KO in gameplay was specifically designed for those that were coming over from Counter-Strike, with abilities that are at points one-to-one recreations of utility from that game. So, I'm just not going to waste any time. We're going to jump into his two basic abilities, Flash Drive and Fragment. Flash Drive, it's just a flashbang. With two charges costing 250 credits each, KO equips a flashbang and can throw it at any given point. You can throw the flashbang regularly, which is just a yeet, or you can lob it using your right click. I'd say it's more for like when you want to exit out from corners. Throwing the flashbang regularly will cause it to explode after 1.6 seconds, blinding anyone in line of sight for 2.25 seconds. Alt Fire causes KO to underhand throw, a weaker version that explodes after a second, blinding for 1.25 seconds. The good old reliable flashbang. Need to peek the dude opping? Flashbang. Pushing into sight? Flashbang. Need to specifically destroy someone's eyeballs? Flashbang. For the love of God, don't throw a flashbang and blind yourself or your team. I've been flamed multiple times doing that, and I've apologized multiple times for doing that. Oh boy, I suck at lineups. Fragment is KO's second ability, with a singular charge costing 200 credits. KO equips an explosive fragment. You can throw it regularly or lob it with alt fire. When the fragment hits the floor, it starts to pulse. Each pulse does 25 to 60 damage depending on how far you are from the center. It ticks once every second for 4 seconds. Fragment is your run-of-the-mill Molotov. Throw it out to clear angles and just deny some space from the enemy. With good timings and some super fun utility combinations, you can do major damage with this ability. KO's utility is simple but effective, especially on his basic abilities, because it's the old reliable, 2 grenade types, you throw them, it does what it says on the tin, and it's super fun when you get some lineups going. KO's signature ability is 0 Point. KO equips a suppression blade. KO can throw said blade when he chooses. Upon contact of any surface, it starts to wind up and detonates after 1 second. Anyone caught in the blast radius is suppressed for 8 seconds and can't use their abilities for the duration. You ever wanted to force your opponents to play Counter-Strike, but they forgot to buy utility, diffuse kits, a shield with a helmet? That is this ability. That's exactly how it feels. Nothing brings me as much joy as hitting a 5-person knife, seeing 5 portraits pop up, and watching them squirm. It makes me feel a sense of power I haven't felt since I started playing Virgil on DMC. And that is a dangerous power trip. KO's ultimate is Null Command, with a cost of 8 points. KO immediately overloads, gaining a 15% fire rate buff and a 10% reload and recovery speed buff for 12 seconds. While in this state, KO also emits an energy pulse every 3 seconds. Enemies caught within the radius in this pulse are silenced for 4 seconds and can't use their abilities. If KO is dealt lethal damage during his ultimate, he doesn't die. KO goes into a DBNO, down but not out, state for 15 seconds. As long as one person is alive, he can be stabilized, reviving him and giving him a second chance at life and bringing him back into the fight. When you hear this ultimate go off, you know everything has hit the fan. Unless you can instantly down the KO, you would not want to try and contest him. When it comes to KO and his ultimate, he usually has a team to back him up in case things get hairy. Even if he goes down, he still has his uses, and that is partially what makes him such a strong pick. That, and when he did become strong and popular, Chamber was kind of running everyone over. KO's personality is that of dry sarcasm, and someone who knows what they're doing. He's pretty chill when you look at him from face value. It's only when you really dive into his backstory is when it becomes apparent that he has seen some unspeakable things during the Radianite War, which occurs nearly 200 years into the future that Valorant is set in. Alternate timeline. Time travel is very convoluted. It's such a convoluted plot device. I'm just gonna say that now. During the Radiant War, Protocol was shattered, splitting the agents into 2 sides. Reyna leading the side of the Radiants in the war, and KO being on the other side of the war alongside Brimstone and other agents such as Sova. The atrocities committed during this war would be unspeakable. When KO would flash back during his gameplay trailer, all that's left is a broken world. The once grand structures of humanity symbolizing its progress left to crumble and decay. Nothing of the world we once knew was left standing. All that was left was death and decay. I've said decay twice, my bad. Brimstone was ultimately killed during this war, a thing that would ring deep within KO's consciousness. Being an AI might have its perks of machine learning, nanosecond calculations, and the ability to simulate scenarios and develop strategies based on these simulations. However, one massive downside would be having the ability to recall everything perfectly, down to the very last detail, like playing back a recording.
Brimstone, I apologize for the references I keep making. You never know what I'm talking about. Even after all these months, I keep thinking that we share these memories, experiences, but we don't. None of that was you. It was him. And he's gone. My memory logs don't fade with time. They're always fresh, always there. It's harder to distinguish past from present. I'll partition my archival system to ungroup your files. Maybe that will help. Thank you for understanding. And for everything else.
KO would get his back though, having taken down some of the strongest Radiant agents, Astra, Sky, and the Queen herself, Reyna. And he would do it again, and again, and again, if it meant protecting the ones he holds dear and the world he so loves. I mean, thinking about it, his logic when it comes to Reyna is very Angstrom-Levy in this case, if you've watched Invincible. Seeing a world crumble and burn around him, you can't really blame the guy. Due to the horrors of the war and the things KO had seen and done, Brimstone's death would have been the final nail in the proverbial coffin that was KO's resolve, ultimately traveling back in time through the teleport on Breeze to try and prevent the war from ever occurring. The memories of the war forever fresh in his mind. Moving on to KO's design. KO is just really freaking cool. From the LCD helmet that flicks through different images and emoticons depending on the situation, the dog tags around his neck with visible battle damage, such as the bullet hole on the right tag, the battle damage all along his front chest plate, alongside scratches and discoloration of the armor in general. KO also has a prominent wolf logo in his right collarbone. It's not explicitly stated, but it's implied that Thurston Wolf was involved in his creation. It makes sense, considering Mr. Wolf was introduced with the map Breeze, the same map that the Valorant protocol actually found KO on when he traveled back in time. Just theoretically speaking, it makes sense to me. Another piece of KO's design that heavily ties into his backstory is the piece of cloth tied around his right arm. This piece of cloth is actually a part of Brimstone's bloodied shirt that KO kept as a memento of his best friend. In a literal sense, always having a piece of Brimstone with him. One notable thing on KO is the polarized Radiant core that when overloaded will shift to a more of a purple instead of its usual green. It's a small detail, but one that's really cool. KO really does play into his whole grenadier design, which is fitting considering that was his codename in development. His grenades, the bandolier around his waist with GL rounds, the pouch in his left waist holding various shotgun shells, and the fact that bro doesn't wear a shirt in general. Like, damn, man. Put on a shirt. KO is essentially the Valorant equivalent of the Terminator, just without Skynet, which is a good thing. Being a friendly Terminator, one that has a consciousness, and one that, when push comes to shove, he'll go crazy. He'll go stupid with it. You know? He's pretty cool. Enough of the rambling. What do I think from KO? KO, from a design standpoint, is badass. He has the factor of, we're doing things my way. Then he proceeds to shut down any form of strategy or power his enemies have, force him to play attack shooter with no utility. His story is pretty convoluted, I'll be honest, but being a Warframe player for the past several years, KO being able to time travel doesn't come anywhere as close as the concept Warframe deals with. And believe me, Warframe is super convoluted. KO from a gameplay standpoint is simple. You suppress, blind, and push, stopping any form of defense the enemy has planned and stomping out any form of stalling. KO is just really freaking cool, man. I love this dude so much as an initiator. He's what made me learn to appreciate the initiator role, because it turns out a lot of the team's power is your initiator. If your initiator is good, you will feel it. A good initiator will open up opportunities for the duelist to entry frag. It's just amazing what an initiator can do. Anyway, that'll be it for me. I'll stop rambling about KO now. The next video will be Omen, and after that, I'm up in the air for what I want to do regarding the series. Anyway, I'm going back to being addicted to video games, and I'll catch you guys in the next video, whatever it will be. This has been Azura, and I'm signing out. Later.